Hello and welcome to this episode of the Fortnightly Dispatch, brought to you by the Baker Street Journal. I'm Steve Doyle and I'm your host. Well, I am very excited to be bringing you this episode. One of the things we like to do here is use the podcast to introduce viewers to people who they I think they should know better, or people who I would like to know better. And many of you know I wear a lot of hats in the Sherlockian universe, but primarily I'm known as a publisher. But there aren't many Sherlockian publishers in the world at any one time. And so I'm very excited today to be welcoming Derrick and Brian Belanger from Belanger Books to the show today. It's an opportunity to get to know them and know about them. And so, yeah. So let's just get to it. So, gentlemen, welcome to the show. I'm very happy to have you here today with us on the Fortnightly Dispatch. This is great. And I think we're in for a good conversation today. So I'm going to start, as I always do on the show. And Brian and Derrick, tell us where you're coming, each of you are coming from today.
You mean like location?
Yeah, where are you?
Okay.
We have people all around the world. Where are you guys coming from?
I'm in Broomfield, Colorado, um, right north of Denver.
Yep. And I'm in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Wow, you guys do not live close. Is that a challenge? I'm going to ask. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself.
It's okay.
I'll come back to that. So, I also like my second question that I like to ask people is, how did you guys find your way to Sherlock Holmes? We're going to talk about your publishing activities and some other things too, but before all that, you guys had to become Sherlockians. How, talk about that for us today.
Oh, that starts with Derrick.
So I mean, for me, I've been asked this question many a time. Of course, it's a very common question, but I don't really necessarily remember the first Sherlock Holmes story I read. But I remember when I got hooked, and I remember very specifically, it was in eighth grade, and I had gotten into Doyle's. Some of his horror fiction, like Horror of the Heights, was one of my all-time favorite stories. And then I had the opportunity for a class assignment to read Study in Scarlet. And reading the story, I'm really into it. And then I get to the halfway point, and suddenly we're in Utah, we're in the desert, huge time jump. And a lot of people say, like, oh, they can't stand that. I was hooked. I never read anything like that, with such a jarring, shift. And I loved it. And then after that, I just couldn't get enough. And I just, through college, I took a Sherlock Holmes class in college. I just loved the character. Started getting into Solar Ponds as well at that point. And then never stopped, never looked back.
Well, that's interesting because a lot of people find the Utah flashback kind of a stumbling block. So
I know,
you, sir. Well, Brian,
how about you?
And I'm the complete opposite. Sherlock Holmes, I was aware of Sherlock Holmes, but it was never a focus for me. I don't think I ever read any of the canon until Derrick brought me in about 10 years ago. Derrick wanted to put together a collection of Doyle's horror work that was in the public domain, and Derrick, you had asked me to help you edit it, and I'm like,
yep.
Sure, why not? And then I'm like, wow, this is great fiction. This is wonderful stuff. And you're like, well, you should read Sherlock Holmes. I'm like, yeah. And then it just took off.
You like this, you'll really like this.
Yeah. That was pretty much it. Yeah.
That's great. So, okay. So, now in your Sherlockian journey, did you join local Sherlock Holmes societies, or were you just kind of out there doing your own thing as as fans of Sherlock Holmes and Arthur Conan Doyle?
Kind of both. What happened was, at least, until I moved to Colorado, I wasn't part of any group. But I also at that point hadn't, written a lot on Holmes outside of that college class I took. It just really was into the character. But as we worked on that horror book, Study in Terror, which was a compilation of Doyle's horror fiction with some professors and other people writing about their importance, I got back into Holmes, and since I was here in Colorado, I'm like, I wonder if there's any local Scion Society. And that's when I found Dr. Watson's Neglected Patients, and joined that particular group, and have been an active member ever since. And now I'm a secretary of the organization, and so I got to meet like Bill Dorn. Was very excited. Yeah. Larry Feldman, who runs the monthly groups, and just it's been fantastic since then. So that's been really nice. Brian, you don't have a Science Society near you, huh?
I really don't, no. And I'm just too busy with the day-to-days of Belanger books to form one.
Sure. Well, I know how that is. It's so I'm gonna segue pretty quickly into your publishing activities. So, okay, there's legions of Sherlockians out there. Very few of us decide to become publishers. And so I feel a kinship to what you guys do, because there's a long but limited in number but long legacy of specialty Sherlockian publishers. It goes all the way back to if you really want to dive into it, it starts maybe with Ben Abrams and with the Journal, and Edgar Smith publishing the one-off stuff for the Irregulars. And then you get up to people like Jack Tracy with Gaslight Books.
Sure. Right.
The original Gasogene publications.
And then even like the affiliates, like the almosts, like Mycroft and Moran.
Mycroft and Moran. You got you've got the oh gosh, I'm having a scene. You got R. Dixon Smith, publisher in England. Yeah. You've got Calabash Press in Canada.
Right.
And a long string of them. Of course, Wessex Press, and Gasogene Books. We acquired David Hammer's press when he needed to step down. And so, but that's you can count, it's like one hand, right? You're counting it on one hand practically. What happened? What made you say, I am genuinely curious, because there aren't that many of us out there. So
sure.
What happened that you did this?
So let's go back to that Doyle horror collection, because that's really where this starts. So back in 2012, we had put together this book with a publisher, and that publisher folded. They just didn't. Unfortunately, it was like, and then I have a book, right? And so, what do I do with this book? And so I went to some of the more academic presses like Lexington to see if they might be interested in it. And I got some bizarre rejection letters like, we don't want to do a book that only focuses on Doyle. That was probably the most common one I got, which I thought was strange. And so then we ended up finding, we did publish it through MX at the time, because that was, they were available. And so that was our first foray into things, and actually had a pretty good friendship with Steve MX, but we kind of, as we were doing things, we're like, we kind of want to do our own thing that was a little different than that. We want to do some stuff that was a little more on the scholarly side. And we just had a vision for what we wanted to see for Sherlock Holmes stories. Like, we wanted pastiches that were traditional, for example, or if they weren't traditional, at least the Holmes and Watson in them were traditional. And that's pretty much where we split into Belanger Books and did our own thing. Would you add anything, Brian?
Only that we've still been on very good terms with Steve.
Oh yeah, that we're friendly.
Yeah.
That's
Well, that's good.
yeah.
MX is an interesting case for me because he is, he's kind of pioneered, or he saw the print on demand potential and sort of pioneered an opportunity for people to get published. And
Right.
that was very a very perceptive insight for him.
Sure.
Do that.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. So so here we go. We're gonna do Belanger Books. This is great.
Yes.
So it's exciting to me. I mean, I just love small press. I love small Sherlockian press. I have kind of an interest in the history of it. And
Sure.
and so I never anticipated that my own press would be the last word in it. I just,
Right.
it'll go on, right? People will keep doing this. And so I was really happy to see you guys come along, and was like, if I was hearing about you guys before I actually saw your books, it's like, hey, you guys, you see Belanger Books? I'm like, no, what was that? And so, so me on the web. Oh, what's this? Very interesting. So, but I think it's great. I think that my own personal thing has always been about like, hey, everybody can just do everything that you want to do, and it's wonderful. So, but I am interested because people do, Sherlockian publishers do seem to have a, we all do seem to sort of specialize in a way. I mean, you can always say, oh, well, they don't do that kind of book, but they do. That's always a way so how do you describe what you guys are interested in publishing?
Traditional.
Yeah, I would say it's interesting because we always say that, but then we also do things like Sherlock Holmes in the realms of H.G. Wells, right? I mean, we do some different things, but we do some mashups, which I think, in fact, I really like that particular series, or Sherlock Holmes and the Occult Detectives with John Linwood Grant and the Occult Detective series. So but I think the key, because we try to stay traditional for the most part, but I think quality is probably the key. Like, we want people to see Belanger Books on a book and kind of know, like, even if you don't like the story for some reason, you still think, okay, at least it was a well-written piece. It was a good story. It was something where, we can have differences of opinions, but you did a good, the author was good, the editing was pretty good. And so you have a good story. And I like that we have a number of different series that, that keep going, like currently the Year of Mystery. So we do that. I think that's a really fun one. So, but every book is a year in the life of Holmes and Watson, and it's a fun one.
Getting back to what you're saying, Steve, like I deliberately put, I designed the book covers, and I deliberately put Belanger Books Presents on each cover because I'm just like, I'm proud of this. I'm really proud of what we do. So I want people to kind of get that. Well, am I gonna? Oh, well, it's a Belanger book, so
Right. I think that's.
I'll buy two. Yeah.
Well, I think every Sherlockie needs to buy from whoever you're buying books from. One for yourself and one to read, right?
Right. There you go. The collector.
So that leads me to, I want to finish this topic, but I will come back to what your respective roles are.
Sure.
So now please correct me, if I have a misconception here, but it does seem like you're mostly interested in new stories. Is that fair?
That's correct. No, that's definitely correct. Yeah. I think we're now bridging more into more like the scholarship, but yes, for the most part, that's correct.
Right. Well, that's interesting because you can, like I was saying, you can look at the various Sherlockian publishers, and you can sort of say, well, they're the ones who do the scholarship, and they're the ones who do the really quality fiction, and they're the ones who do the, like of the big three right now. And all apologies to anybody who feels left out. It's BSI Books, Wessex Press, and Belanger Books. I mean, those are the three main players, I think. Well, MX too. MX Phil.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would include
MX is filling that space.
Sure.
People
Okay.
want to get published, and I think the I think it's cool that you do stories because there's a lot of fan fiction out there, and
right.
People decry. I mean, how do you feel about charges that publish the charge or the idea, the assertion that publishers are sort of gatekeepers? Well, like, who's the publisher to say what should be published and what doesn't? And I'm curious about this question because you talk about wanting to do quality work, and that's one of our guiding principles at Wessex Press. And so how do you look at that subject?
No, that's a great question. I mean, I would say at first the first level is the story itself, right? Or the submission for if it was something that was more of like one of our other books. But really just the quality of the writing of the story is number one. And then does it fit? Definitely ties in as well. When we do a book, you can't help but you have to reject about something like half the submissions, depending on the book. Sometimes more than that, sometimes a little less, just depends.
Right.
But so and sometimes if we have quite a few good stories, we might decide. We've done this a number of times with 2 volumes or even 3 volumes of a particular book.
Well, that's a good problem.
Yeah, it is a good problem to have, right? And no one complains when we do that. So, but even in those cases, we still are rejecting a good number of stories. Some of them are just, like they come across as fan fiction, or they think, writing Sherlock in the 19th century counts as Sherlock Holmes, and they're different, different stories.
Right. And I don't mean to be disparaging fan fiction. I know that's a really popular outlet for people.
Sure.
But it often tends to be, as a publisher, when you are investing time and money in publishing a book, I think there's, you got to be kind of set. This is for the submitters and the readers out there. I think we need to be, it's incumbent upon us to do as well as we can for both our, the publishing company and the author that we're going to publish. And if it's a work that is of a certain level, then we're not going to be doing anybody a disservice by publishing it and never selling a copy of it or something. I mean, that's one of our criterias for taking a pass on a book. We passed on many books that was like, man, this is a good book, but I don't think we can sell it. You know what I mean? I don't think we're the right place for it.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm just like to talk to other publishers about what their criteria is and how they make these decisions, because it's tricky sometimes, I think.
I would agree with you on that. Right now we're kind of expanding a little bit. We started with just focusing on homes, and now we're expanding into other areas, and so it is getting more interesting as we kind of look at that, answering these kinds of questions. Because we're starting a horror line of books that John Linwood Grant is editing. That's kind of our current kind of next push. And again, we kind of had to handpick him because he does the occult detective line, and we wanted to make sure we had someone who was really good and had kind of the types of stories we wanted to kind of head this new line of books we're going to be focusing on. because we can't do with the two of us, we also can't do everything. So that there is that as
Right.
well. Yeah.
Totally get that.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
there's
sure
so
you
many
do.
hours-
I'm
There's
sure
only
you
so many
do.
hours in a day.
Only
Right.
2 hands, folks.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, but I'm sure you're in the same boat, Steve, where sometimes you get something that just doesn't really fit, with Gasogene.
Oh, it's
Um,
true. I mean,
yeah.
there's been a number. Oh gosh, there's been a number of times where, um, it's like, wow, we've really my partner Mark and I, publishing partner Mark, we sit there and we're like, this book is so good, but it would be kind of selfish to publish it just so we could have it in the catalog and know that because you kind of get sensitive to your market,
Sure.
and just know
Right.
that we couldn't sell it. It would just not work. And yeah, so we've reluctantly taken a pass on it, but we have recommended books on to other, you might try them,
I
that's
was about to ask if you've done that, because we've done that as well.
Yeah.
oh
Yes, where I've
yes.
been like, hey, this would just does not fit our audience, but
But
this person we know, we can forward it along and recommend you to them. So we've
Yes,
done that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Good, great.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what you guys. Okay, I want to talk about your respective roles in the. So Derrick, it sounds like you started you had the idea, right? I mean, is that fair? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think at least I had the kernel of the idea. I don't know if I would have taken the plunge without Brian though. I mean, I think he definitely was like, yeah, let's do this. And so we have. So yes, but I probably started it, but I think together we we jumped in the ocean together. Yeah.
So, and Brian, so you said you're a graphic designer, is that right?
I one of many hats.
But yeah.
Yeah, but yeah,
I
I'm
do
an
admire your covers, by the way.
well, thank you.
No, I
Thank
do.
you.
There's a couple of them that have like, wow, that is really, I like that. That's good. So
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, yes, I do graphic design. I design the covers. I design all of our covers, and I also design most of the covers for MX as well. I work for the competition.
that's very
I
generous of you.
and well, it's not for free, but yeah, I do that. I do interior illustrations, like for our Essential Home series. I've been doing illustrations in those, and for our children's series, the McDougal twins, and a few other books. But I also edit. There's some of the books I edit, and I also have written a few things, but that's really Derrick's forte. Derrick is the writer.
You do the audio too now. You're
And
starting the
I was
audio.
gonna
He's
say,
just
yep,
starting to do audio.
yep.
So right, you guys have a podcast or something. What is talk about that?
Oh, well, actually, he was talking about audio books. Are you talking about 5 Miles from Anywhere?
Well, that's what I think
That's
I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's actually a Scion society that I started during the pandemic. Just and it sounds like there were a lot of Scion societies started in the pandemic, but just to get kind of allow people from all across the world to come together, and so we hosted. We originally when it started out it was I was on the board. We had Jay Ganguly as a board member in India. Steve MX joined. So we had like England, India. We even have Aussie on the board. So we kind of had like the whole globe, and that way, we just have different people from around coming on, either discussing a story or giving a talk. And we tried to keep it short. We just keep it to an hour. And now it's
Right.
pretty streamlined. It's every Saturday, the first Saturday of the month, from noon to 1 Eastern time, and then 5 to 6 London time. So
Yeah, that's
that's
definitely what I was talking about. But
yeah,
that is not
yeah.
a Belanger Books initiative.
No, that's just for fun. I mean, we occasionally have an author on who is a Belanger Books author. We've had, lots of different authors on from many publishers. So yeah. Cool.
And Brian, you're doing audiobooks too.
Last summer, I got to play Holmes on stage in a couple of radio plays over in Keene, New Hampshire. And after that, I just got the bug. People seem to like my my Holmes and so forth. So I took some voice acting classes back in the fall and got some equipment, and I've just started recording some of our audio now. So it's fun. I mean, that's something I've got to say. I mean, out of this whole publishing experience, no matter how busy it gets, this is a fun job.
That
So how
is
much
true.
of a job is it? I mean, do you
Well,
have like when I say real world lives, I mean lives. Do you have like professional? You know what I mean? I mean, there's the Sherlock universe, which is really where we all live all the time, right? And then there's the other rest of the world. But do you have like jobs and what's your personal background here?
Ryan's homeless.
I'm not, well, oh yeah, you really can't see anything
Yes.
back here,
Are
can
you
you?
coming to us
Yeah.
from like a van somewhere down by the river?
Yeah, that's right. Under the bridge. I'm a teacher, so I teach high school. I'm a special education teacher. I also have taught English and math as well. So that's my day job. And then obviously doing Belanger books on the side, as well as also, as Brian said, he does the covers for MX. I also try to push myself and write for occasionally for other publishers too. So, but so that's me. But Brian, you're pretty much full time now.
Right. When we decided to go to form Belanger Books, remember, I was working full time at a benefits job, and I quit. And I took a few months off just to set up the business, and then I took a part-time job for a few years. And then when COVID hit, I was like, well, it's perfect timing. So ever since March 2020, I have been 100% Belanger Books with some freelance graphic design on the side.
Yeah, the pandemic did have a few silver linings, as
Yeah.
dreadful as it was. And that's,
Tiny.
Yeah, I'm
Tiny
not
bit.
saying it was a good thing, everybody. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But you could, there was a couple moments like, oh, that's not bad. Well, good for
Right.
you, and that's great. That's really good. That's really good. All right, guys. Well, we need to take a break to hear from our commercial sponsor. All right, we're back. Brian, I saw your deer stalker. That was during the break. Brian busted out the deer stalker.
Just got back from London.
That's right.
That's an authentic.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Cool. So, guys, let's talk a little bit about. You kind of alluded to some of the things you like to publish. What's your several series or several things like that? Do you have anything that is you're particularly fond of in your catalog?
Oh, there's lots.
So which of our children do we love the best? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely certain ones that I think do stand out, but
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's kind of like where do we start? Going back a ways, before Baker Street was one of our early ones. And that was all stories from like homes in like Montague Street era. And that had some really, really cool, fun stories in it. I thought sometimes when we just kind of throw something out there, like a topic, like let's try this, a theme, it's really cool to see like what we get. We just did the Medical Mysteries collection to raise money for Dr. Ed Chan, who does a rare lung disease. It was to help raise money in that. And you know, a lot of the authors you wrote just like, really? Like it has to be around medical stuff? And the collection was fantastic. Like very, very creative stories and really good mysteries. And so you know, I could probably go on. Brian, I'll let you jump in. What comes to your mind? Tag, you're it.
Oh man. Just again, yeah, some of the stuff that we get, I really liked the crossover we did with Holmes and in Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh yeah,
That
that was
collection. That has a place in my heart. That just worked so well for me. Some of those stories.
You know, in our Sherlockian universe, there are people who are like, no, no, no. That's you know, it's is about Sherlock Holmes only. It's the traditional canon. Do you you know, do you get more, is it more fun for you guys to like make those kinds of like jump the boundary of the canon and kind of link it up to other works of literature and other you know, I don't want to use the word fandom so much, but other, you know, other, make those connections to other characters and stories and that sort of thing?
I think it keeps it exciting, to be honest with you.
I wouldn't say that it's just mashups. I mean,
Right.
they're a lot of fun, but we no, there's a lot of the traditional books that we do are a lot of fun too.
When I'm listening to you guys talk about, you know, mixing it up and you know, connecting to other things and keeping it interesting in that way, it's really kind of in a way where the sort of where the Sherlockian, the larger Sherlockian world has kind of gone. What I mean by that is, I mean, I've been around since, you know, I'm older than dirt. So it's like, I've been around since like 7, right? So, and there was a time when publishing Sherlockian fiction, news stories, that was just not a thing, right? And, but in the last, I would say the last decade or so, that's, you know, I never would have predicted that Sherlockian fiction would become such a big thing, whether it's fan fiction or, you know, pastiche, new stories. You know, pastiche always had a sort of pejorative kind of negative connotation,
Right.
even with things like 7% Solution and these marvelous books that were published, which are clearly works of pastiche. And yet, everybody's always like, kind of, it's pastiche, you know, but it's really been ascendant in, I said, the last decade. And what do you think that says about the Sherlockian community? Because I think it says something. Does it, to you guys, does it, you know, is it a reflection of something? What does that mean to you guys?
I honestly think, I mean, a big part of that is the show Sherlock. I mean, I think that just tapped the vein and made things kind of explode. And you know, Elementary as well, I think to a lesser extent. But it made you know, Holmes became quite hip again, right? It was cool. And so kudos to that for doing that. But I think I think Holmes is always, you know, popular. You know, and I think that it just kind of started a little bit of a renaissance. I think that might be, you know, I think that wave might have kind of be falling a little bit right now, just because it's not as prevalent at the moment. But there's just so much going on for such a very short amount of time. I think that just brought everyone in and people connected with the character.
And
I
wanted
think they,
more.
yeah, right, wanted more, and they see how the modern detective stories that they watch and read connected, you know, it all goes back to Holmes, you know, really. And I think that's a big part of it too.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, Holmes and Watson, they're everywhere. Once you really start becoming a Sherlockian, you realize they are everywhere. And so when you pick up a new book, a new story, a new pastiche, it's like revisiting your old friends. Just the other night, The Thin Man was on, and Nick turns to Nora Charles and says, "Come along, Watson." And, in Twin Peaks, Agent Cooper and, Sheriff Truman, and Sheriff Truman says, "I feel like Dr. Watson here."
Yeah.
I even opened up, God, what was that? Autobiography of a Yogi, and I'm flipping through this, and he says, "Oh, how much I love Sherlock Holmes," and I almost dropped the book.
Even if you
They're
don't wrote a
everywhere.
prestige.
So it's just, I really feel that these are, you don't realize how much they're already a part of your lives.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It is true. I mean, they're an archetype that's just so pervasive. I mean, there's, you're watching, I've often kind of, if I'm ever speaking to sort of a lay audience about Sherlock Holmes, I mean, is there a lay audience? I don't even know if there is one, but you're
Right.
and that's like, you already have encountered Sherlock Holmes. If you like Kirk and Spock or Starsky and
Sure.
Hutch or
Yep.
any of these characters like this, what do that's Holmes and Watson, really.
Right.
That's the archetype that's been, that's the model that's been set. And yeah, I think you're right, Brian. I think that's really true. You see that, you do see that sort of the mold everywhere. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, as they say.
Right.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's true. If you look at, like, even when my daughters were growing up, I mean, like My Little Pony, they'd have like a Sherlock Holmes episode where one of the horses has the deer stalker on and has like a pipe that's blowing bubbles. I mean, that's in anime, there's a ton of Sherlock Holmes type characters. You see them constantly. So I think, yeah, you just grow up with the characters, whether you're aware of it or not. They're just part of our culture.
We're all sort of steeped in it, really.
Yes. Yeah. Which is a good thing.
Right? Well, it is. Great.
Yeah.
It's great for publishers.
Right.
It's great. It's a great thing on a very
Yes.
high level. But no, it's really true. It's a great thing. So, when you think about, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I've had a lot of time to think about these things, and maybe you guys haven't had as much time at it as I have to think about it, but maybe you have. I think about, how important do you think it is that we have kind of small Sherlockian press, like the BSI publishes, they've been a publishing powerhouse now.
Yeah.
They've always published, but they really cranked up when BSI, Baker Street Irregulars books, became like a much more formalized thing.
Mhm.
Mark and I have been around since 1997, 6 or 7, something like that.
Yeah.
You forget about it, you lose track. And do you think that the role of Sherlockian publishers contribute to the longevity of the community that we all live in, or are we just sort of riding on the back of it? I think about that sometimes.
I think it's both. We definitely, well, I mean, we're making a living at it, but it's definitely important. I would say that, because this is an outlet. I mean, if there wasn't a demand for this, Belanger books wouldn't exist. So it's definitely, by printing new books, new material, we are keeping this, the spirit of Holmes and Watson alive. And not only that, with the small press, we're also giving up-and-coming authors an outlet. In fact, that's one of the things we've done. We actually have printed a few books where we have children writing pastiches, and we pair them up with professional editors to give them their first chance. Like, okay, this is what it's like to be published. This is what it's like to work with an editor. This is what a paragraph is. Make sure you understand it.
Are you trying to scare them?
It's a little better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, and I would say there are, I mean, I think there's some, some people now, like the minute one of our books, comes out, like we have like regulars, right? And then they write to us occasionally and stuff like that. And, and some just have gotten into homes through the new books. So that does happen too. So I think we do sometimes miraculously, like just people are like, hey, like they get into the new stuff, they have to go read the canon. And so that's very important. But I mean, I think
it is great when you publish something and someone says, "Oh, I found this book and that was my gateway."
right.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Derrick. You were saying.
Oh, no. I agree. But I mean, and I think, you said like, is it important to have this book? I mean, I think like, BSI Press, the manuscript series is extremely important. I mean, I think those are just amazing. Because I mean, that's history pretty much right there. I think, so I think a lot of these things are very important. And they do keep it alive. And, some of the books like, Sherlock Holmes is Everywhere was one of our early essay ones where just kind of people wrote, about like where they're seeing Holmes, how they connect to Holmes. And I think some of those are important. The Writing Holmes and now the Reading Holmes books that we're doing with Bob Katz and Rich Ryan, I think those bring a lot of interesting perspectives too. So I think both the scholarship and the stories, are important. I think they're good gateways. And again, they keep that heartbeat going, because we know, Holmes and Watson, they never live, but they'll never die, right? We know this.
That's so true. Well, guys, you're not going to believe this, but we're about done.
Oh, wow. This went fast.
So let me ask you a couple. I know, right? It always goes.
Yeah.
It does. So, where do you guys, I always like to get philosophical toward the end of these things occasionally. It's like, where do you see like the Sherlockian community going, in the future here? I mean, how do you, like I said, I've been in it for like a lifetime. And so, I'm always interested in people's different perspectives of, the Sherlockian world we live in, and we're publishers, so we have a certain perspective, but we're also active in the community in other ways. Where do you think it's going, and what do you think we can look forward to? I like to ask that in a positive way.
No, I think it's going to continue, and I think it's going to grow. I mean, right now, as you said, we're publishers, but I mean, there's games, right? There's escape rooms, there's plays, movies, TV shows. I don't see that ending. I think that's going to continue expanding. I wouldn't be surprised if now we start now that the full canon is in public domain. I wouldn't be surprised if we see small video groups like on YouTube stations that do like the whole canon and things like that. I think that's probably coming. And I'll just be curious to see, just as technology gets better with everything with artificial intelligence seems to be going really fast right now. It'll be interesting to see like some virtual reality Sherlock Holmes material. It's coming. That's got to be coming. And it's again, I think people are just going to get so like wrapped up in that world of that foggy Victorian London and just it's just going to continue to be magical.
That's something to look forward to, right?
Yeah.
For us book publishers, the Archetype book, we're publishing books, people. With artificial intelligence and virtual reality, but you still need to buy a book, right?
Yeah.
Right, guys?
I don't think that'll ever stop, right?
Books still matter.
That's right.
Well, guys, this is great. We're about out of time. I can't believe it, but we are. And so I just want to say thanks for being on the show. And this has been really fun. I don't get a chance to talk to, but there aren't a lot of publishers, so I really relish the opportunity to talk with other Sherlockian publishers, and that's been a great thing. So good job, guys. Keep it up. And we all have our niche, and you're doing good work, and I see it. So I'm really I want to say hats off to you guys, and I look forward to seeing you in person somewhere down the road.
Yes.
Absolutely, yes.
And remember, everybody, books matter. You got to buy some books. Anyway, take care, guys. We'll see you in down the road.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This was a pleasure.
And that's it for this episode of the Fortnightly Dispatch. I want to thank Brian and Derrick for coming on the show. It was really fun. That was a fun, lively conversation, and I'm very grateful. I'm also grateful to all of you for your continued support and all your good messages and your kind words of encouragement. It really means a lot. And so that's all I've got. It was a fun show, and I do look forward to seeing you next time because we have another very special guest joining us. Until then, take care.